Welcome back to Local Decision 2020. I'm Rusty Ray, and we are joined now by State Senator out of District 38, the incumbent Republican, Roger Chamberlain. Thank you for being here.
Well, thanks for having me back. Long time no see. Nice meeting you, Rusty.
Yeah, nice to finally meet you. We both Lino Lakes residents, and this has become quite a contested race over there. We see a lot of the signs, we see a lot of literature from a lot of the candidates, but this is what I want to ask you. Without everything that 2020 has been, and we're going to talk about that in just a moment, what would this election be like in a normal election year? The whole state house is up, everybody in the state house is up. For you, having run a few of these campaigns, what would this election be like if we didn't have to address COVID?
Well, for us, our operations were only slightly adjusted. We're still out knocking on doors, and there's been no problem with it at all. Our typical process is you knock on a door, you back up 6 feet. That's how it's always been. And I tell you, I've been to about, I don't know, 7,000, 8,000 doors myself, and volunteers have been to another several thousand. So we have not had any problem with that. So for us, our operations, how we've done it has been pretty much the same. Getting to meet people in their where they live, in their neighborhoods, in their communities. Like I said, we've been to, well, probably 7,000, 8,000 myself, along with my colleagues, and then the volunteers been more. So how would it be different without COVID? Well, there'd be other issues. I guess the only difference for us is there'd be other issues. But COVID, public safety, education, healthcare, and the economy are on people's minds now because they don't know, are they going to be safe? COVID on top of the riots, right? George Floyd issues. So they're going to be safe in their communities, given what happened in Hugo and other places. Are the kids, how do they manage the kids? Are the kids' educations, is it still a quality education? Are they getting what they need? Economy, now we're in deficit, and we still have a lot of people out of work. And then healthcare costs. So that's what they're concerned about now. So if there was going to be something different in a normal, non-COVID, non-riot year, it would probably be some of those issues.
You were speaking about the demonstrations outside the home of the Minneapolis Police Union president, and his home is in Hugo, and that was earlier this summer, and that became quite a spectacle, it seemed. Does that seem like the most far-reaching impact of what's happened in Minneapolis to your district? We don't typically hear much about law enforcement or people questioning law enforcement in this district, probably for many reasons. That, though, was a direct impact, and I know that you and some other folks had a rally not long after that saying, we want to protect our hometown.
Well, right, it was far-reaching, and it was very dramatic, and it had a great impact on the citizens there. We don't need to rehash it here, but it was some vile, nasty threats and comments about burning the city and taking back stuff and lawlessness, right? And I'll leave it at that. So yes, it had a great impact on the citizens up there, and it was far-reaching. I'll say this, the law enforcement officers, corrections, police officers, they're husbands and fathers and mothers and wives and friends and neighbors and sisters. They live in our community, and the vast majority of the people trust their local law enforcement. That's because they do what they're supposed to do, and they do it well. Now, there are always problems, and I supported the reforms and accountability and reforms and training and accountability actions we took in July in the Senate. Fully support that. So all those things said, the vast majority of police officers do a great job in the whole criminal justice system. And we have to be aware, they're people too, and they live in the community, and they're brothers and sisters, and they do great work, most of them. And then we do need reform, we do need oversight, but they're doing great work, and not many people want to do that sort of stuff. People realize when you have trouble out, when things go bump in the night, they're not calling Susie or Johnny down the street, right? I'm pretty concerned.
What can the state do more with education and healthcare, these topics that you brought up, that again in a normal election cycle would be bigger topics, or not to say that they're not.
Right.
But what can the state do? You've talked in your literature that you dropped in folks' mailboxes about things that you've done with education and increased funding per pupil, but yet still people want more. Is there more that can be done?
Well, I think I worked in a bipartisan way on literacy and dyslexia for parents. A group of parents approached me a few years back, and we got to work on this issue of dyslexia. And we have, with their help and their support and bipartisan work, we've made great progress in bringing attention to dyslexia, getting training to the educators, and believe me, the educators want it. We had a plan to bring up another training program for teachers, which had the support of the Teachers Union, School Board Association, the Department of Education, and the parents, to allow, and educators, to allow training to these educators to help address not just dyslexia, but literacy. So literacy, I believe we can get to 90% proficiency across the state in every category, and every child should be able to get to 90%. I mean, in total, not every child, but we should be able to get to 90%. We spend a lot of money, and they got a lot of words in the books to address reading, but we're still suffering, and the average is 65% proficiency across the state. That's unacceptable. We can do better. The educators know we can. We had an agreement. We're going to do it, and then COVID and no money. So literacy, in a broad term, dyslexia falls in that. They go hand in hand. The teachers have had great success. They're very happy with it. So that's one thing. And look, the African American community and Hispanics support on average by a total of 75% self-determination, and more options, and more transparency, and more choice. 75% of African Americans, 75% of African Americans, 80% of Hispanics support self-determination, more options, more choice, more transparency. And we've worked with them and the Parents Union and Rashad Turner quite a bit to address those issues. So new ideas, new solutions, bipartisan, working across the aisle with the community and the parents and the educators to do good things, and we can get to 90% proficiency in 5 years. We can do it. Mississippi's done it, and we can follow their lead. We can do it.
Some candidates use social media better than others, and I've seen your Twitter account. You're very active. You share a lot of things, and you retweet and you comment on things. Earlier this summer, a publication, the Minnesota Reformer, called into question some of your Twitter activity, saying that you sent a tweet to and have liked several tweets, I believe, by someone reported to be someone who talks a lot about in a book and on a podcast about white supremacist ideas. And your opponent and other DFL party in the state made a little bit of hay with that. Do you have any kind of response for that?
Two things is, first, it's libel, it's slander. They took their post down, both on Twitter and Facebook, and no other major media outlet picked it up because they knew it was bogus and ridiculous. It was a coordinated coordinated effort, political hit job between my opponent, the Democrats, and this magazine. It all came out, this online publication, all came out at the same time. The publication is not very well liked, even among the media professionals in the area. So it was a coordinated hit piece from my opponents and the Reformer against me because they have no solutions. There's no solutions, and you have no solutions, no new ideas. You tend to come out and call names and accuse of foolish things. So I tweet, I'm not real active on Twitter, but what you'll see on my Twitter account is me retweeting Black Americans talking about positive things. I'll retweet things of art and architecture and beauty and women. That's what you'll find on my Twitter account. You won't find me espousing anything. So it's libel, slander, a coordinated hit piece by my opponent and the Democrats, because they really don't have any solutions. So I'll leave it at that.
Should your social media activity be dissected, though, as an elected official, as a senator with ranking power who's climbed through the ranks at St. Paul? Should it be examined and taken apart like this?
People can do what they want, but when you get to libel and slander, it's something altogether different. What we're looking at here is censorship. Should we go to my opponent's house or your library, see what you're reading, see what people are watching on TV? That's what we're talking about. More restrictions on speech, freedom, liberty, restrictions on free thinking, restrictions on movement, restrictions on happiness. This is a restriction, a move in a direction of censorship to try to intimidate people not to reading books. I've read the Bible, I've read parts of the Quran, excerpts from the Quran, and a lot of other things. I eat tuna fish sandwiches. That doesn't make me a tuna fish, right? You read a book on casseroles. That doesn't mean you endorse casseroles or all casseroles or any casseroles. I mean, you read a book to be enlightened and to learn. So what they're talking about and considering is censorship and further restrictions on people's movements and thoughts, intellectual censorship, and using intimidation and bullying and scare tactics. I will not do that. I will not be party to that. I am focusing on solutions that are good for the community, that have worked for people in this district, and most of them find it simply laughable. They took the tweets down because they were embarrassed and they got slaughtered out there. So again, my solutions, my record speaks for itself about what I've been doing for criminal justice, for education, for middle class taxpayers, for seniors, for farmers and small businesses. So libel, slander, ridiculous, coordinated, no solutions on their side.
In your position as chair of the tax committee, moving forward towards the new budget process, looking at the big swing, started the year with a surplus, projected surplus, finishing the year in a very, very large deficit primarily because of COVID and the loss of revenue there. Looking ahead as part of this tax committee process, is there a re-examination of the way that the state brings in revenue in order to get out of this hole and to maybe shore up in the future should another calamity of this kind happen and put states in this position?
Well, you can never be fully prepared for every eventuality. You just don't know. But you're right. We had 1.5. Now the estimate is probably 10% shortfall for the biennium, which is about $5 billion for the 2 years. A huge amount. And that's an estimate. It could be higher, it could be lower. But at any rate, things have changed dramatically. But we need to work towards normalcy, giving people confidence and hope that we're going to get out of this and we'll be fine. Confidence and hope that we're going to get out of this COVID thing. We're going to be fine. We'll be okay. There's solutions, there's remedies, there are things we can take care of. But we have to get businesses open again. We had to get the economy rolling. It was a strong economy before COVID and before the riots. It can go back to that. The fundamentals were good. What we were facing was a shortage of labor. So short-term confidence, hope, we'll get over this. We're going to be okay. We're going to take care of this and we're going to get through it fine. We've been through worse in our history and people's lives. We're not going to raise taxes. Businesses have been hurt enough. Individuals have been hurt enough over this over the COVID issue and the subsequent riots. Thirdly, we have to limit spending. We have to limit state spending, and there's at least 5% squish in there that can be removed.
Is that one of the primary solutions in your view, is to first start with that and then start examining other ways the state maybe is allocating its resources in addition to how it is garnering those resources? Is it a switch that can be flipped like that with the start of the new year and a new session that these changes can start happening?
Well, we don't intend on going backwards. We have to go forward. The solutions have to be, our solution, my theory, my philosophy for years has been empowering the individual, empowering people, educators, parents, individuals, communities, for ingenuity, creativity, to be free-thinking, free-spirited people, to bring solutions aboard, empowering, lifting and limiting restrictions, creating great opportunities. Government cannot solve all problems. We just can't. We cannot guarantee happiness. We can't guarantee your success. We can't do that. It's impossible. We're run by people who are imperfect. What we need to embrace and need to empower individuals who God have made perfectly unique and perfectly imperfect, that gives us strength and vitality to this economy and to our culture and to our communities and neighborhoods. Unique individuals, free thinking and free spirited to drive solutions, and we're going to be good. We cannot burden them with more restrictions and more regulation. Government cannot solve all these problems, but we can create a framework for them to go forward and function happily and successfully within. We can't, there's no laws or policies or legislation to solve all these issues. I can't make your neighbor love you. I can't make your kids love you. But we can create an environment where everybody can move freely and bring their talents and gifts to the table to solve the issues in their communities and move forward. And that's what we got to do, empower those free-thinking, amazing people to do amazing things.
Are we going to see any big changes to, and we've been talking to other candidates about major road projects, so I figured I got to ask you about one, and that's the intersection of County J and 35E. That's a busy place, and I noticed they put some stoplights up there here, but here recently. Were there plans to do anything there? You wrote about it in your literature. Did that get stalled at all by COVID or other projects?
I brought together, some people talked about it, and we organized a couple of meetings with interested parties, people, businesses on the corner, citizens, other legislators, bipartisan. So we organized a couple of meetings, had some organizational discussions, and proposed to put money up for it. Yes, COVID, and yes, the riots have put that whole thing in a different position now. The whole bonding bill and tax relief obviously had to change, right? Priorities change with changing circumstances and situation. But we organized it. We plan to continue pushing for that because it is a needed improvement in the area. And what those improvements are, they weren't quite sure. Are they roundabouts or signals or ramps or whatever? But we had money and plans to go forward with that. We still will.
Do you anticipate that the bonding bill will still come through this year with a succession of special sessions or anything like that, an opportunity to put that forward?
Well, the only reason we're in special sessions is because the governor has emergency powers. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here, and it wouldn't be an issue. But it's going to be October. It's getting late. I know people like bonding. Bonding is not bad, but it does increase the debt load and what you pay. So we had to be aware of that since we're going into, we have a deficit coming up. So the second part of it is we have great differences with some other members of the legislature, and what their priorities are and what other priorities should be. So unless they can come to an agreement on that, it's going to be hard. But the House has to kick it off, and they still have it in their hands, and they're still working on negotiating that. So, and they didn't. We thought we'd be back in September again to do it, but they made no progress. So I don't know. I'm not confident that we'll get a bonding bill or any sort of tax bill, but I'm not going to do a tax bill that gives up on our school equalization and our charities. We negotiated a good tax bill, small, skinny tax bill with the governor and the House and the Senate. We all came to agreement. 3 parties came to agreement. It's a good, skinny bill, and it included help for our local charities and help for low-income, low property wealth school districts. I'm not going to give up on those 2 things. We've had to swallow that pill for a couple of years now, and I'm not going to give up on it again. We either get that or we get nothing.
Okay. Roger Chamberlain, that's the time that we have. I appreciate your time today.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Appreciate it.